Today, we will make a writing set based on the Squid Game TV series. To be honest, I haven't watched it myself yet, but the product should be interesting. Welcome to the W&M channel. I have the cylinder and surprise. Surprise, once again, it's made of brass. Its diameter is 32 millimeters. To the defenders of steel, I will say that there is nothing magical about brass. It's much easier to handle on tabletop hobby less. Besides, it looks nice. Also, I have this shoreline steady rest, and today we will try it out. The workpiece is long. We will need to cut off a few pieces from it. First, we align the base plane. We'll need it for milling. The machine is kind of small for cutting of such a large piece. I hope today it can do it. Despite the fact that the cut-off tool overhand is pretty big, it looks like the machine is doing fine. There are not even any strong vibrations. The cutter went to the right a little bit, but I think the problem is that it is sharpened at an angle. For now, we clamp the pot into the new vise. I'll tell you about it later. We insert the flying cutter and continue machining. We need to make a square out of this cylinder. It's not very difficult. The main thing is to make sure that all sides are equal. After doing this, the surface comes out pretty smooth, so there won't be much need for grinding. Switch the clamping strip to flat ones and flip the part. We need to create the third base surface, and then everything will be easier after that. For those who write me saying I waste so much metal by turning it into shavings, I will say yes. But seriously, if I had a square, I would of course use it instead. We get this nice cube, and now it needs to be sanded. We won't polish it for now, because we're making a novelty item and still need to do a laser engraving. Just in case I made 3 more blanks, laser is a complex thing and it might not come out right on the first try. By the way, I've resharpened the cutter to a right angle. It works much better now. I found a Baroque pattern on the internet. Such patterns are used to decorate knives and other weapons. It is essentially European 17th, 18th century style, and it looks pretty cool. A cube has 6 sides, and we need to engrave 3 symbols from the Squid Game: circle, square, and triangle. So each shape will be engraved twice on the opposite sides. A simple drawing is not interesting enough. We'll engrave with some depth. That takes quite a long time. The laser goes over it twice. The first time is to engrave, and the second one is to clean. Because of slag, not everything is clear, but a pattern is already emerging. First, we grind it, gradually reducing the grain size 500, 1000, 2500. In the end, we give it a nice polish. We could use the gooey paste, but it would get in all that nooks and crannies, and then it's hard to get out. Overall, it came out something like this. The camera doesn't really do it justice, even better in real life. I'm seriously considering electroplating, because brass doesn't darken over time. This cube has no serious functionality. It is only for pleasure of looking at it and spin it in your hand. The next stage is the pan. The collets of my lathe and milling machine give me an idea of creating a collet pan. I've seen pencils like that, but I haven't seen such pens, so we will make one. We take a rod with a diameter of 6 millimeters and use it to make a collet. First, we mill out the main operating diameter. Then we drill a hole, which we will later slightly widen. Now the second hole with a smaller diameter, same as the tip of the ink reservoir. Then we need to turn the front headstock. To do this, we remove the guide, put the front headstock back and turn it just a little over 4 degrees. This will let us mill out the body of the collet. It is important not to overdo it, so that later on the collet does not drop into the case. By the way, the headstock turning scale is divided into 5-degree parts, which is pretty rough for what I'm doing. There is a place for a new scale. I have a laser machine, so I will need to make a more precise one. We widen the entrance of the collet and add a thread, just like the big collets. For this I used a very small thread mill, with the tops of the teeth at only 0.16 mm. All these operations were done in one setup, and now we can cut it off. This is what it will all look like. Just finish up the outer side. The most difficult thing here is to cut 3 grooves equidistant from each other. This cut is only 0.5 mm thick. The deeper the slit, the easier it is to squeeze the collet, so we will try to make it as deep as possible. This is already so much better. We got this really interesting part. I found the pipe among my old things. It has an outer diameter of 4 mm. It is perfect for what we are doing. On one side, we will cut a thread on it to attach the collet. This also worked, so we can cut it off. We will make the body from a bar with diameter of 8 mm, but we will reduce it to 7 mm. We drill a hole in the center. This is where we will attach the collet. At the bottom of the pan, where the fingers will hold it, let's make a knurling. Since the pan will not have rubber-covered parts, the knurling will stop fingers from slipping. Drilling a thin hole through the entire body is not a very simple task and takes a bit of time. Sometimes drilling these small holes can cause an issue with the drilling going sideways, but this time everything went okay. For the collet to work correctly, you need to make a cone shape inside the body, but the angle will be a bit smaller. We turn the headstock in the opposite direction and mill. Now everything is just right. We reduce the diameter of the rest of the body to 7 mm. The overhang is too big, so we will hold it in place where the revolving center. After that, we polish it with sandpaper. There will be an engraving here too. I will not show the whole engraving process. It takes a while and it's the same pattern but on a cylinder. We remove the slag and patinate it. Now the final polish. We cut off the body and use the remaining part to make one more part. It already has a hole drilled in it. We just need to adjust the dimensions due the knurling. It came out to be too large. I cut it out a little more, and now it's just right. Now we use the same fly cutter to give it a bit of decorative shape. By then, the metal becomes too thin and begins to vibrate. It is easier to finish it up on the grinder. We drill a thin hole in the center for air access. And then we get this crown. It needs to be soldered to the tube. I removed the excess solder on the lathe. Finally, I decided to try out the wheel for wood. It turned out to be quite a fun thing. A stained hornbeam is definitely not the softest wood, but the wheel works very nicely. For all kinds of decorative gizmos for wall cavers, I think it is a very interesting option. Decided to make a random pattern so it will look more like stone than wood. We mill out a flat surface on the top. There will be a recess for the cube and a hole for the pan. Since there are no exact dimensions of the shape, we will choose an approximate spot for the recess. First, we go through with a 6mm cutter and finish it off with a 1mm cutter to fit the corners. We slightly tilt the workpiece and mill out the hole for the pan. The soft attachments work very well and remove traces of rough processing. The texture remains, but the product is already more pleasant to touch. We cover it with varnish, and while it dries, we put together the pan. The pattern looks a little differently on it. It could probably be even smaller, but this is also good. First, we insert the top part, then the ink reservoir. By the way, it can fall in even further. Then the collet. By rotating the cap, clamp the ink reservoir in the collet. Now it sits there tightly, and this is what it looks like. In any other pan, there is a small gap between the tip of the ink reservoir and the tip of the pan itself, but not in this pan. It's alright. Now we can put together the finished composition. I do not know what it looks like, but we got this composition for creative thinking. You can flip it in your hands, write a letter, or just enjoy your thoughts. I hope you liked it too. Bye bye.